I watched Marcus through the pawn shop window, my coffee growing cold in my hands. He thought he was being discreet, collar up, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. But I'd know that walk anywhere. The confident stride of a man who believed the world owed him everything. He pushed through the door, and even from across the street, I could see the bulge in his jacket pocket. My engagement ring, or rather, the cubic zirconia I'd bought on Etsy for $49. I took a sip of coffee and smiled. 3 months ago, I died on my wedding day. Not romantically, not peacefully. I choked on my own blood in the bridal suite while my maid of honor, my supposed best friend since college, Jessica, stood over me with empty eyes and Marcus's cologne still clinging to her dress. "I'm sorry," she'd said, not sounding sorry at all. "But he loves me. He's always loved me. And your trust fund, well, once you're his wife, it becomes community property. Once you're dead, it becomes his property. We needed a cleaner solution." The poison had worked fast. Some boutique thing Marcus got from his pharmaceutical contacts, untraceable, that mimicked a severe allergic reaction. Everyone would think I'd had a tragic accident with the wedding caterers. Poor Marcus, widowed before he could even say "I do." Except I didn't stay dead. I woke up 6 months earlier in my apartment, with my phone alarm blaring and Marcus's name lighting up the screen. "Good morning, beautiful. Can't wait to marry you." I'd stared at that text for 10 minutes, my hands shaking, my mind racing through every moment of those 6 months. Every lie, every tender kiss that meant nothing, every time he'd steered me toward changing my will, toward making him the beneficiary of my accounts, toward isolating me from my family because they didn't understand our love. And Jessica, God, Jessica, helping me plan the wedding while sleeping with my fiancé, holding my hand while I cried about wedding stress, knowing she was the one who'd hold the syringe that would end me. Most people would have run, called the police, warned someone. But I'd been given something precious, knowledge and time. And I was going to use both to destroy them so completely they'd wish I'd just called the cops. The first thing I did was go to my jeweler. "I need you to hold on to my engagement ring," I told Mr. Chen, sliding the velvet box across his counter. "Put it somewhere very, very safe." He opened it, and even in the dim lighting of his shop, the 3-carat diamond caught the light like trapped fire. Flawless. Worth more than most people's cars. "Of course, Miss Winters. May I ask why?" "Let's call it insurance," I said, Asan. "And I need you to do me a favor. I need a replica. Cubic zirconia, the best you can make, but it needs to be obviously fake to a professional. Can you do that?" Mr. Chen had known my family for 30 years. He'd sold my father the ring he'd proposed to my mother with. He didn't. Ask questions he didn't want answered. 1 week, he said. I picked up the fake ring 6 days later. It was perfect, glittering and pretty, enough to fool anyone who wasn't looking closely, but any jeweler worth their license would spot it in seconds. Mr. Chen had even given me a cheap band to match, plated instead of platinum. "If anyone asks," I said, "you never saw me. This ring doesn't exist." "What ring?" Mr. Chen replied, his expression carefully neutral. "I wore the fake ring home," Marcus noticed immediately. "Did you get it cleaned?" he asked, taking my hand. "It looks different." "Just polished," I lied smoothly. "Mr. Chen said it needed maintenance." He'd accepted it without question because Marcus didn't actually care about the ring. He cared about what it represented: access to my money, my connections, my life. The next 6 months were a performance, and I deserved an Oscar. I played the loving fiancé while systematically destroying the foundation of Marcus's plans. Every move was calculated. Every conversation was a trap he didn't see closing around him. First, I went to my lawyer. "I want to restructure my trust," I told Gerald, my family's attorney since before I was born, "and I want to do it quietly." Gerald pushed his glasses up his nose. "What kind of restructuring?" "The kind where if something happens to me, Marcus Harper gets absolutely nothing. The kind where every asset I have goes into a foundation that he can't touch, can't contest, can't access. And I want it ironclad." Gerald studied me for a long moment. "Did something happen?" "Let's say I'm being cautious." It took 3 weeks and a small fortune in legal fees, but when we were done, my assets were locked tighter than Fort Knox. Marcus could marry me, divorce me, or even, though Gerald didn't know this, kill me, and he'd get nothing but debt. Because I also took out a series of loans in my name, with my trust as collateral, and funneled that money into overseas accounts Marcus didn't know existed. On paper, I was still wealthy. In reality, I was judgment-proof. If I died, my creditors would come after my estate, find nothing but loans and debts, and Marcus would be left holding the bag. But I wasn't done. I started documenting everything. Every time Marcus worked late, I knew he was with Jessica. So I hired a private investigator, not to catch them. I didn't need proof, I had memories. But to create a timeline. Photos, videos, hotel receipts. A nice, neat package that would destroy both their reputations when the time came. I also started asking questions, casual ones, innocent ones. Marcus, honey, your pharmaceutical contact, the one you said could get deals on wedding supplies, what's his name again? Dr. Reeves, he'd say, not paying attention. Why? Oh, just for thank you cards. We'll need to send so many. I filed the name away. Dr. Reeves, the man who'd provided the untraceable poison that killed me? The man whose medical license was about to become very interesting to the state medical board once I dropped an anonymous tip about his side business in controlled substances. And Jessica's helping so much with planning, I'd gush. I'm so lucky to have her. You really are, Marcus would say, and I could see it in his eyes. The guilt he quickly buried. The knowledge that he was betraying me with my best friend and convincing himself it was justified because, what? Because he deserved my money? Because I was too trusting? Because he could? At night, when he'd leave after dinner, claiming work emergencies, I'd take out my laptop and work on the next phase. Money movements, digital trails, creating a breadcrumb path that would lead investigators exactly where I wanted them to go. But the ring was my masterstroke. 2 months before the wedding, I started acting worried about money. The wedding is costing so much, I said, biting my lip. Maybe we should scale back? Marcus's eyes had sharpened. We can't scale back now, sweetheart. We've already put down deposits. I know, but my trust. I didn't realize how tied up everything was. The lawyers are saying I need to be careful about liquidity. This was, of course, a lie. But it was a lie designed to make Marcus panic. If I didn't have liquid assets, his whole plan fell apart. He needed me wealthy and accessible, not asset-rich and cash-poor. Over the next few weeks, I watched him get increasingly agitated. More work emergencies, more hushed phone calls he thought I couldn't hear. And then Jessica started pushing for a destination wedding. Somewhere exotic, she'd say, showing me pictures of Bali, of the Maldives, places far from home, places where an accident would be harder to investigate. I don't know, I'd say. That seems expensive. But it would be so beautiful, and Marcus would love it, wouldn't you, Marcus? He would look between us, calculating. Whatever makes you happy, babe. But I could see his mind working. Destination wedding, foreign country, fewer questions. I let them convince me. Let them think they were steering me toward my own demise. And all the while, I wore that fake ring, waiting. The first crack came 6 weeks before the wedding. I was at a charity gala, the kind of event I'd attended hundreds of times. Old money, older jewels, and enough gossip to fuel a tabloid for years. Marcus was schmoozing potential investors for his latest startup scheme, and I was making small talk with Mrs. Vanderbilt, a woman who'd known my grandmother. My dear, she said, taking my hand to admire the ring. What a lovely... Oh. She stopped. Her expression shifted from polite interest to something else, something knowing. It's beautiful, she said carefully. But I'd seen her eyes. She'd recognized it for what it was, and Mrs. Vanderbilt was many things, but discreet wasn't one of them. The next day, Jessica called me, breathless. Did you hear? Mrs. Vanderbilt is telling everyone your ring might be fake, I gasped. What? That's ridiculous. I know, it's so tacky of her. You should sue for slander. I I don't know what to say. The ring is real. Mr. Chen certified it. There was a pause. Of course it is, Jessica said, but I could hear the wheels turning. Of course it is. That night, Marcus was different, distant. He kept looking at my hand, at the ring, with an expression I couldn't quite read. You know I love you, right? He said. Not your money, not your family, you. I know, I lied, and I watched him convince himself he believed me. But the seed was planted. Mrs. Vanderbilt's observation had done its work, and in the social circles we traveled in, that kind of rumor was gasoline on a fire. Within days, people were talking, not openly, never openly, but in the way society whispers. Sympathetic looks, knowing glances, the kind of attention that made Marcus's jaw clench and his smiles become brittle. We should get the ring reappraised, he suggested one evening, just to shut everyone up. Why? I said, playing innocent. We know it's real. Yes, but Marcus, if we look defensive, it just makes the rumors worse. Let them talk. We know the truth. He dropped it, but I could see the doubt festering, and doubt was exactly what I needed. 3 weeks before the wedding, I escalated. I need to talk to you about something, I said, sitting him down in my apartment. My voice was serious, concerned. It's about the trust. Marcus went very still. What about it? My lawyers are concerned about complications. With the wedding, they're recommending a prenup. I watched his face, watched the anger flash before he controlled it. A prenup? Sweetheart, we don't need us. I know, but they're insisting. And honestly, with all the rumors about the ring, about money, maybe it's for the best? Just to protect both of us? Protect both of us, he repeated, his voice flat. Right, I mean, you have your startup and I have the trust, and this way nobody can say anyone is after anyone else's money. I showed him the prenup. It was brutal. In the event of divorce, each party kept their own assets. No alimony, no claims. In the event of death, well, the surviving spouse got a modest life insurance payout and nothing more. Marcus read it 3 times. I could see his hands shaking. This is pretty one-sided, he said finally. Is it? I thought it was fair. We both keep what's ours. But if something happened to you, then you'd be taken care of. There's $1 million life insurance policy. That's not nothing. $1 million. Compared to the $30 million in my trust, it was nothing. Compared to what he and Jessica had planned to walk away with, it was an insult. I need to think about this, he said. Of course, take all the time you need, but the lawyers say we need to sign it at least a week before the wedding for it to be valid. I left him with the document and went to bed, my heart pounding. This was the moment. This was where they'd make their decision. Would they cancel, postpone, try to talk me out of it? Or would they accelerate? They accelerated. 2 days later, Jessica called me sobbing. I can't do this anymore, she cried. I can't keep this secret. What secret? I asked, my voice perfectly concerned. Marcus, he's been... Oh God, I'm so sorry. He's been having an affair. The performance was almost impressive. The way her voice broke, the shame, the guilt. What? Who? I don't know, I saw texts on his phone. I was helping him plan your surprise honeymoon and I saw them. I'm so sorry, you deserve to know. Not with you, notice. Some mysterious other woman. Because Jessica was setting up her own alibi. When I died, when they investigated, she'd be the friend who tried to warn me about Marcus's infidelity. The grieving best friend who'd tried to save me. I need to see him, I said, letting my voice crack. I need to talk to him. Are you sure? Maybe you should wait. No. Now. I drove to Marcus's apartment like a woman possessed, because that's what they expected. That's what the old me would have done, confronted him, emotional and vulnerable and ready to be talked down. But I wasn't the old me anymore. I knocked on his door. He answered in his undershirt, looking guilty. "We need to talk," I said. "About what?" I pushed past him into the apartment. No, Jessica, she'd be waiting for her cue. They'd probably planned this whole scene. "The prenup, I'm not signing it." Marcus's expression shifted. "What? Why not?" "Because I love you, and I trust you, and I don't want lawyers and contracts between us. I want a real marriage." I watched hope and greed war in his eyes. "Are you sure?" he said slowly. "I'm sure. Forget the prenup. Forget the lawyers. Let's just get married and be happy." He pulled me into his arms and I let him hold me, feeling his heart race against my chest. "I love you so much," he said. "I love you too," I said, and thought about how he'd watched me die in my first life. How he'd probably held Jessica just like this, celebrating their success. "But there is one thing," I said, pulling back. "Anything. The ring. With all the rumors, it's causing too much stress. Maybe we should simplify? I could wear my grandmother's ring instead. It's simpler, more understated. And it would shut everyone up about fake jewels and gold diggers." Marcus stiffened. "What about your engagement ring?" "You should keep it. It's yours. You bought it for me." "Maybe, I don't know, maybe you could sell it? Use the money for the honeymoon? Something special just for us." I watched his face, watched the wheels turn. "Sell your engagement ring? Why not? It's just a thing. And if it's worth as much as you said when you proposed, it could pay for an amazing trip. Somewhere incredible. Just you and me." The greed won. I could see it in his eyes. "I couldn't," he said, but his voice was weak. "Please. I want you to. I want us to start fresh. New ring, new life, no rumors." He held out for almost 5 minutes before agreeing. We made a whole ceremony of it, me taking off the ring, placing it in his hand, kissing him like I meant it. "For our future," I said. "For our future," he agreed. I left his apartment and sat in my car for 10 minutes, shaking. Not from fear, from anticipation. Because now the trap was set. Now all I had to do was wait. Marcus held onto the ring for 3 days. 3 days of him probably weighing his options, wondering if I'd notice if he just pawned it, calculating whether the money from a fake ring was worth the risk. But the wedding was 2 weeks away, and I'd stopped talking about money problems, stopped mentioning the trust being tied up. In fact, I'd started spending again. Caterers, florists, musicians, acting like nothing was wrong. Which meant Marcus was starting to panic. Because if I wasn't actually broke, if I still had access to money, then why would I let him sell the ring unless I knew something he didn't? I could practically hear his thoughts. What if she knows it's fake? What if this is some kind of test? But his greed was stronger than his paranoia. And he needed cash. His startup was failing. That was real. He'd leveraged everything on marrying me, and now he was running out of runway. So, on a Thursday afternoon, 3 days before our wedding, I followed him to the pawn shop. I watched him walk in, confident and cocky. Watched the pawnbroker take the ring, examine it under his loupe. Watched Marcus's expression go from confident to confused to horrified in the space of 10 seconds. The pawnbroker said something. Marcus's mouth moved. The pawnbroker shrugged. And then I saw it, the moment of absolute humiliation. The pawnbroker offered him $50 for the cubic zirconia in the gold-plated band. $50. Marcus didn't take it. He grabbed the ring and stormed out, his face red, his hands shaking. I was back in my car before he made it to the sidewalk, my coffee abandoned, my phone recording his expression as he stood there, staring at the ring like it had betrayed him. But I wasn't done. Oh no, this was just the beginning. That night, Marcus came to my apartment. He was trying to hide his anger, but I could see it simmering beneath the surface. Hey, I said, opening the door. I wasn't expecting you. We need to talk about the ring. Did you sell it? Where are we going for the honeymoon? His jaw clenched. The jeweler said there was a problem with the certification. What kind of problem? He said it might not be authentic. I let my eyes go wide. What? That's impossible. Mr. Chen certified it himself. That's what I said. But this guy, he seemed pretty sure. Well, he's wrong. Should we go back to Mr. Chen, get it recertified? Marcus's eyes narrowed. When did you last see the ring? Like, really look at it? When you proposed. Why? And you haven't had it switched or cleaned somewhere else? Marcus, what are you saying? I'm saying that ring is fake. Cubic zirconia. Worth maybe $50. I let the silence hang. Let him see the tears well in my eyes. You think I gave you a fake ring? I said softly. You think what, scammed you? I didn't say that. And that's exactly what you're saying. You're saying I gave you some cheap fake and kept the real one. I'm not. Fuck. I just need to understand what happened. What happened is you were so eager to sell my ring that you took it to some shady pawn shop instead of a real jeweler, and now you're accusing me of fraud. It was a masterful performance. Hurt, anger, betrayal, all the emotions I'd actually felt in my first life, now weaponized. Marcus tried to backtrack, tried to calm me down, but I could see the doubt eating at him. Because he knew. Deep down, he knew he'd been played. He just didn't know how or why. Get out, I said finally. Get out, and don't come back until you're ready to apologize. He left, and I sat down at my computer and sent an email. To Jessica. Marcus tried to sell my ring. Did you know about this? She called within minutes. What? No. Oh my God, what is he thinking? He said it's fake. Jessica, he said my engagement ring is cubic zirconia. That's insane. Why would he even, unless he needed money, unless he's been lying about the startup, unless everything has been a lie. Honey, no, I'm sure there's an explanation. Is there? Because I'm starting to wonder if you've been lying to me, too. Silence. What are you talking about? Jessica said finally, her voice careful. I know about the affair, Jess. More silence. I don't know what you... Please don't insult me. I've known for months. I just wanted to see if you'd tell me yourself. I could hear her breathing, fast and panicked. It's not what you think, she said finally, and it never is. He seduced me. He said you two were having problems. He said a lot of things, didn't he? He's good at that. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll end it right now. I'll tell him we can't. No, I said. Don't end it. What? Don't end it. In fact, I want you to do me a favor. I could hear her confusion, her desperate hope that maybe she could salvage this. Anything, she said. I want you to marry him. What? The wedding is in 3 days. I'm not going, but you should. You two clearly deserve each other. I don't understand. It's simple, Jess. I'm done. You can have him. You can have the wedding, the dress, the venue, all of it. My gift to you. But nothing. I'm leaving. I'm going to my parents' house and I'm going to tell them everything. About Marcus, about you, about all of it. And then I'm going to let the lawyers handle the rest. Wait, I hung up and then I waited. It took 6 hours. 6 hours before Marcus showed up at my door, panicked and sweating. We need to talk. No, we don't. Please, just let me explain. Explain what? That you were cheating on me with my best friend? That you tried to sell my ring? That everything about us was a lie? It wasn't all a lie. Get out. The wedding. There is no wedding. Not for us. But I hear Jessica is available. Maybe you two crazy kids can run away together. Oh, wait, you can't. Because you're broke, aren't you? The startup failed. You need my money. His face went white. That's what this was always about, I continued, my voice cold. My trust fund, my connections, my family's money. You never loved me. You loved what I could give you. That's not true. Then prove it. Walk away. Leave me alone. If you really loved me, you'd let me go. He stood there, and I could see him calculating, trying to figure out if there was still a way to salvage this, to get what he wanted. I can't, he said finally. I can't walk away. Because you love me? Because I owe people money? Because I'm fucked if this wedding doesn't happen. Finally, the truth. Not my problem, I said. Yes, it is. We had a deal. We had a relationship, and you destroyed it. You can't do this. You can't just cancel everything. Watch me. I closed the door in his face, locked it, and listened to him pound on the wood, screaming threats, making promises, begging. And then, finally, he left. I called my lawyer. Gerald, it's time. Release everything. Are you sure? I'm sure. The next morning, the shit hit the fan. First, the private investigator's report went to Marcus's investors. Photos of him and Jessica, hotel receipts, a timeline of their affair, and more importantly, evidence of him embezzling from his own startup to fund the affair. His investors pulled out within hours. Second, the state medical board received an anonymous tip about Dr. Reeves and his side business in controlled substances. They raided his clinic that afternoon. Third, Jessica's employer, a prestigious law firm, received documentation of her affair with a client. Marcus had technically hired her firm to do his corporate paperwork. The conflict of interest was enough to open an ethics investigation. And fourth, the best part, I called my parents. Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something about Marcus. My father was a federal judge. My mother sat on the boards of half the charities in the city. When I told them everything, leaving out the Rebirth part, obviously, they made some calls. By that evening, Marcus's startup was being audited by the IRS. His business accounts were frozen. And somehow, mysteriously, every single vendor for our wedding had received payment in full and canceled their contracts. No venue, no caterer, no flowers, no band, no wedding. I watched it all unfold from my parents' house, my phone buzzing with increasingly desperate messages from both Marcus and Jessica. Marcus, you destroyed me. You destroyed everything. Me. No, you destroyed yourself. I just gave you the rope. Jessica, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, you have to understand. Me. I understand perfectly. You're both exactly who you showed me you are. The final blow came 2 days later. Marcus showed up at my parents' house. My father's security stopped him at the gate, but I walked out to meet him anyway. He looked destroyed, unshaven, exhausted, desperate. Why? He said. Just tell me why. Because you tried to kill me, I said simply. His face went white. What? Not yet. Not in this timeline. But you were going to. On our wedding day, you and Jessica, poison probably. Make it look like an allergic reaction. Inherit everything. You're insane. Am I? Then why did Dr. Reeves have records of you asking about untraceable poisons? Why did Jessica have a syringe in her purse the day before our original wedding date? I was bluffing. In this timeline, I'd stop them before they got that far, but the look on his face told me everything. Guilt, horror, and the dawning realization that somehow, impossibly, I'd known. How? He whispered. Does it matter? You lost, Marcus. You lost everything. Your business, your reputation, your freedom, once the IRS finishes with you, and all because you got greedy. The ring was never real. I had it swapped months ago. The real one is safe. And you pawned a $49 piece of cubic zirconia for 50 bucks, probably the only honest transaction in your entire life. He stared at me like I was a ghost, like I was something he couldn't quite understand. You knew, he said finally, the whole time. You knew everything. I knew enough. But how? Goodbye, Marcus. I turned and walked back to the house, leaving him standing at the gate. I didn't look back. The legal fallout took months. Marcus was indicted for embezzlement and fraud. His startup collapsed completely. Dr. Reeves lost his medical license and faced criminal charges. Jessica was disbarred and facing her own legal troubles. And me? I changed my name. Not legally, just socially. Started going by my mother's maiden name in professional circles. Winters was too associated with Marcus, with that whole disaster. I moved to Seattle, started a tech company with the money I'd squirreled away in those overseas accounts. Within a year, we had venture funding. Within 2, we went public. My company, my rules, my success. Built on my own merit, my own skills, my own drive. Everything Marcus had wanted to steal, I created myself. I never wore an engagement ring again. Didn't need to. I had something better than diamonds. I had freedom and knowledge, and the satisfaction of knowing that every single day Marcus woke up in his studio apartment, working some dead-end job to pay off his legal debts. He thought about me, about the woman he underestimated, the woman he tried to kill, the woman who came back and destroyed him with a $49 piece of cubic zirconia. 5 years later, I was in New York for a tech conference. I was in the hotel bar celebrating closing a major deal when I saw her. Jessica. She'd aged badly, stress and guilt etched into every line of her face. She was working, I realized, waitressing, in the hotel bar where I was drinking champagne that cost more than her weekly paycheck. Our eyes met across the room. She recognized me immediately. I raised my glass to her, a small, private salute. And then I turned back to my colleagues, my success, my life, and I let her fade into the background where she belonged. She brought my drink 10 minutes later. Her hands were shaking. Catherine, she said quietly, It's just sparkling water, I said, not looking up from my phone. I don't drink anymore. Bad memories. She set the glass down. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I'm truly sorry. It's worth about $50, I said. Give or take. She flinched. Have a good evening, I said, dismissing her. She walked away, and one of my colleagues leaned over. Who was that? Nobody, I said. Just a ghost. That night, in my hotel room, I took out my real engagement ring for the first time in 5 years. Mr. Chen had kept it safe, as promised. 3 carats of flawless diamond, platinum band, perfect and pristine, and mine. I'd never sold it, never pawned it, never even wore it again. But I kept it. As a reminder. Not of Marcus, fuck Marcus. But of myself. Of the woman who died trusting the wrong people. Of the woman who came back and learned to trust herself instead. I held it up to the light, watching it sparkle, thinking about how much it was worth. How much Marcus had thought he'd get from marrying me. How much he'd destroyed himself trying to steal. And then I put it back in its box and placed it in my safe deposit box at the hotel. Some people kept photo albums. I kept this, my trophy, my reminder, my proof. I'd died once because I was too trusting. I'd come back and became ruthless, and I'd won. 6 months after seeing Jessica, I got a letter. It came to my company's main office, forwarded through several layers of screening because, of course, I had security now. I was worth too much to take chances. The return address made my secretary pause. FCI Coleman Low, a federal prison in Florida. Marcus. I almost didn't open it, almost threw it away. But curiosity won. The letter was short. Catherine, I know you'll probably never read this. I know I don't deserve for you to read this. But I need to try. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did, about who I was, about who I destroyed. Not just you, but myself. The investigators never figured out how you knew. How you knew about Jessica, about the plan, about everything. But I have a theory. Want to hear it? I think you're a time traveler. I know how insane that sounds. The prison psychologist has some opinions about my delusions, but it's the only thing that makes sense. The way you knew exactly what we'd do. The way you set traps we didn't see until we'd already fallen into them. The way you had everything planned out like you'd lived through it before. Because you had, hadn't you? I don't know how. Alien technology, divine intervention, a really specific psychic gift? Doesn't matter. What matters is that you knew we'd try to kill you, and you came back and destroyed us instead. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve that. I'm writing because I need you to know something. You were right about everything, about me, about Jessica, about the type of people we were. We were parasites. We saw you as a mark, as a meal ticket, as something to be used and discarded. And in whatever timeline you came from, we succeeded. We killed you. And I probably spent your money and lived my life and never thought twice about the woman whose trust I'd betrayed and whose life I'd ended. But in this timeline, in this version of events, I spend every day knowing exactly what kind of monster I am, what kind of monster I could have been, what kind of monster I was in some other world where you didn't get a second chance. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I am saying thank you. Thank you for being smarter than us. Thank you for being strong enough to do what needed to be done. Thank you for giving us the exact punishment we deserved. And thank you for not killing us back. Because that's the thing, isn't it? You could have. You could have poisoned us right back. Could have framed us for murder. Could have destroyed us physically the way we tried to destroy you. But you didn't. You let the law handle it. You let our own greed and stupidity bring us down. You let us destroy ourselves. That takes a kind of mercy I don't think I'll ever understand. I hope you're happy. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you found someone who actually deserves you. I hope you built something beautiful. I hope you're living the life we tried to steal from you. And I hope you never, ever think about me again. But if you do, if you're reading this right now, please know I'm sorry for all of it. For who I was and what I tried to do and the person I hurt. I'm sorry. Marcus. I read the letter 3 times. Then I walked to my office shredder and fed it through, watching the strips curl and fall. He didn't deserve my forgiveness, didn't deserve my thoughts, didn't deserve anything but exactly what he'd gotten. But as I watched his words turn to confetti, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Because he was right about one thing. I had come back. I had been given a second chance. And I'd used it not just to save my life, but to build something better. My company was thriving. I had friends, real friends, not parasites in disguise. I had family who loved me. I had a life that was wholly mine, built on my own terms, with no one else pulling the strings. And yes, I thought about them sometimes, about Marcus and Jessica, about Dr. Reeves, about everyone who'd been part of that dark timeline. But I didn't think about them with anger anymore. I didn't think about them with hate. I thought about them the way you think about a near miss on the highway. A close call, a disaster averted. They were the person I could have been destroyed by, the life I could have lost, but I wasn't, and I didn't. I survived. I came back, I won, and that was enough. I had one final task to complete. Mr. Chen called me in his usual quiet way, asking if I'd like to come by the shop. He had something to discuss. I drove to his store on a Saturday morning, the city still quiet, the streets still calm. He was waiting for me, a small velvet box on the counter between us. "Miss Winters," he said, "I think it's time." Time for what? Time to decide what to do with this. The engagement ring, still perfect, still pristine, still carrying the weight of everything it represented. "I've been holding it for 5 years," Mr. Chen said gently, "and I will hold it for 50 more if you wish. But I wonder if perhaps it's time to let it go." "Let it go," I repeated. "Transform it into something new, something yours." I looked at the ring, 3 carats of diamond that Marcus had bought not out of love but as an investment, a down payment on my trust fund, a key to a life he wanted to steal. What would you suggest? Mr. Chen smiled. What do you want? Not what you think you should want, not what would be appropriate or symbolic or meaningful. What do you want? I thought about it, really thought about it. I want, I started, then stopped. I want it to be mine, not his, mine. Then we shall make it so. It took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of consultations, of designs, of careful craftsmanship. When it was done, Mr. Chen called me back to the shop. Miss Winters, he said, pride in his voice, your piece is ready. He opened the box and I gasped. The diamond had been recut, reshaped, transformed from a traditional round brilliant into a stunning geometric design. All sharp angles and clean lines, modern and fierce and absolutely mine. It was set not in a ring, but in a pendant. White gold, minimalist setting hanging from a delicate chain. It's perfect, I whispered. It's yours, Mr. Chen said. As it always should have been. I wore it out of the shop, felt the weight of it against my chest. The diamond that Marcus had thought would buy him a life of luxury, now transformed into something he'd never even imagined. My armor, my reminder, my trophy. That night, I had dinner with my parents. My mother noticed the pendant immediately. That's new, she said. It's old, actually, I replied. Just redesigned. She studied it for a moment, then understanding dawned in her eyes. The engagement ring, she said softly. I nodded. Oh, sweetheart. She reached across the table and took my hand. It's beautiful. It is now, I said. My father, who had been quietly observing, raised his wineglass. 2 second chances, he said, and to my daughter who knows exactly what to do with them. We clinked glasses, and I felt the pendant warm against my skin. To second chances indeed. The years passed. My company grew. I dated, fell in love, fell out of love, dated some more, built friendships that were real and deep and based on actual trust, traveled the world, made mistakes and learned from them and kept moving forward, and through it all, I wore the pendant. Every single day. People would ask about it sometimes. That's a stunning piece. Where did you get it? And I'd smile and say, it was a gift from myself to myself. Because that's what it was, a gift. A reminder of the woman I'd been, too trusting, too naive, too willing to see the best in people, even when they showed me their worst. And a reminder of the woman I'd become, strong, independent, clear-eyed about the world and my place in it. I never saw Marcus again after his letter, but I heard things. Through the grapevine, through mutual acquaintances, through the occasional Google search I wasn't quite proud of. He served 6 years, got out on good behavior. Last I heard, he was working in sales somewhere in Indiana. Divorced, he'd apparently gotten married in prison to some woman who wrote him letters, and it had lasted exactly as long as you'd expect. Struggling but surviving. Jessica had moved to Florida, changed her name, was working in real estate last I heard. Not practicing law, obviously, but she'd clawed her way back to something resembling normalcy. Dr. Reeves had died in prison, medical emergency from what I understood. I felt nothing about that. Good people would probably have felt something. Sympathy, maybe. Or vindication. I felt nothing. They were chapters in my story that had ended, characters who'd played their parts and exited stage left. The story was mine now, and they had no place in it. I was 40 years old, sitting in my corner office overlooking Elliott Bay, when the email came. From Jessica Reynolds, realtor at Gmail. Case. Subject. I know you probably won't read this. Catherine, it's been 10 years. I know I have no right to contact you. I know I should leave you alone. But I need to tell you something. I figured it out. How you knew. It took me a decade, but I finally understood. And I need you to know that I know. You died, didn't you? That's the only explanation. In some other timeline, some other version of events, Marcus and I succeeded. We killed you, and somehow, impossibly, you came back. You got a second chance, and you used it to destroy us. I don't know how it happened. Maybe there's a God, maybe there's magic, maybe there's something in this universe we don't understand. But I know that's what happened, because nothing else makes sense. the way you knew about the affair, the way you knew about the plan, the way you set up every single trap perfectly, like you'd already seen us fall into them. You knew because you'd lived it, you'd died from it, and you came back and made us pay. I've spent 10 years thinking about that, about what it means, about what kind of person I am in a universe where I actually succeeded in killing my best friend, about who I became in the timeline where you died. And I've spent 10 years trying to become someone different, someone better, someone who deserves to exist in the timeline where you lived. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. You don't owe me that. I'm writing because I need you to know it worked. Your revenge, your justice, whatever you want to call it, it worked. I'm not the person I was. I can't be. Because every single day I wake up knowing that in another world I'm a murderer. That in another world I killed you and probably lived happily ever after with your money and your fiancé and never thought twice about what I'd done. But in this world, in this timeline, I think about you every single day, about what I tried to do, about who I was willing to become for money and a man who didn't even really love me. And I'm grateful. Grateful that you were strong enough to stop us. Grateful that you were smart enough to outsmart us. Grateful that you were merciful enough to let us live, even if living meant facing exactly what we'd become. You saved my life, Catherine, by destroying it, by forcing me to rebuild from absolute zero and figure out who I actually was beneath all the greed and jealousy and willingness to betray. I don't expect a response. I don't expect anything, but I needed you to know. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for winning. Thank you for giving me a chance to become someone better. I hope you're happy. I hope you're thriving. I hope the universe that gave you a second chance is treating you well. And I hope, somewhere in whatever timeline we're both living in, you can find peace knowing that the people who tried to kill you learned their lesson. With all the regret I'll carry for the rest of my life, Jessica. I read the email once. Then again, then a third time, and then I hit delete. She didn't deserve a response, didn't deserve closure, didn't deserve to know if she was right about the rebirth, about the time travel, about any of it. She deserved to live with uncertainty, to wonder, to spend the rest of her life thinking about what she'd done and what she'd tried to do, and never quite knowing for sure if her theory was true. That was its own kind of punishment, its own kind of justice. I closed my laptop and looked out at the water, at the city I'd built a life in, at the world that was wholly mine now. And I smiled. Because they could theorize all they wanted. They could spend their whole lives wondering how I'd known, how I'd won, how I'd outsmarted them so completely. But the truth was mine. The knowledge was mine. The power was mine. I'd died once and come back stronger. I'd been betrayed and learned to trust myself more than anyone else. I'd been targeted for my vulnerability and transformed myself into someone who would never be vulnerable again. That was my secret. That was my power. And I'd never, ever share it. Years later, 15 years after the rebirth, 10 years after the last email, I met someone. His name was Daniel. He was a marine biologist of all things, passionate about coral reefs and ocean conservation and things that had nothing to do with money or status or anything Marcus had valued. We met at a charity gala I was hosting for ocean conservation. My company had made enough money that I could afford to care about things larger than myself. And somewhere along the way, I'd fallen in love with the idea of protecting things, of preserving what was beautiful and fragile and worth saving. Daniel gave a presentation about his work, earnest, awkward, completely oblivious to the room full of millionaires and billionaires who were barely paying attention. I was fascinated. After, I found him at the refreshment table, loading up a plate like he hadn't eaten in days. "The shrimp are particularly good," I said. He looked up, startled, and I saw him recognize me. The host, the CEO whose name was on the invitation. "Oh, hi, sorry, this is my first time at one of these things. I didn't realize there'd be food. Real food, I mean. Usually these events have like tiny expensive things that taste like concepts instead of actual sustenance." I laughed, actually laughed. When was the last time someone had made me laugh at a charity gala? "Well, eat up. I paid for the concepts. Might as well enjoy them." We talked for an hour, then two. Then the gala ended and I found myself suggesting drinks, and then dinner, and then suddenly it was 3 a.m. and we were sitting on the deck of an all-night diner, talking about everything and nothing. He asked me out properly a week later, stammering and nervous, like he thought I might say no. I said yes, Dating Daniel was different from anything I'd experienced. He didn't care about my money, genuinely didn't care. He lived in a tiny apartment with 3 roommates and spent half his year on research vessels. He wore the same ratty hoodie to every date. He forgot my birthday because he was in the middle of the Pacific Ocean studying bleaching events. And I loved him for it, because he saw me. Not Catherine Winters, tech CEO, not Catherine Winters, trust fund baby, just Catherine. The woman who loved bad puns and good coffee, the woman who stayed up too late reading mystery novels, the woman who had a scar on her shoulder from a bike accident when she was 12. He knew nothing about Marcus, about Jessica, about the rebirth and the revenge and any of it, and I wanted to keep it that way. But 6 months into dating, he noticed the pendant. "You wear that every day," he'd observed. We were lying in bed, his apartment, early morning light filtering through shitty curtains. "I do." Special meaning? I touched the diamond, feeling its angles against my fingers. "It's a reminder," I said finally. "Of what?" "Of who I used to be and who I became." He studied me for a moment, his scientist brain probably cataloging my expression, my tone, my body language. "You don't have to tell me," he said, "but I'm here if you want to." And maybe it was the morning light, maybe it was the fact that he'd already seen me at my worst, sick with the flu, drunk and crying over a business deal that fell through, angry and petty about a competitor's success. Maybe it was just time. "I was engaged once," I said, "a long time ago. To someone who didn't love me. Who wanted to kill me, actually, for my money." Daniel went very still. "Kill you?" He didn't, obviously. I figured it out before he could go through with it, but the plan was there. The poison was purchased. The affair with my best friend was happening. It was all lined up. Jesus Christ. This pendant, the diamond in it, was my engagement ring. Or it was before I had it reset. I kept it. As a reminder of what I survived, of how strong I had to become. What happened to him, the fiancé? Prison for other crimes, not attempted murder. I couldn't prove that part. But I could prove embezzlement, fraud, a dozen other things. He served his time. He's out now, living some small life somewhere. Daniel pulled me closer. "I'm glad you survived." "Me too. And I'm glad you kept the diamond." "Fuck him. He doesn't get to take anything from you. Not even the memory of what he gave you. You took it back. You made it yours." I kissed him then. Because he understood. Without knowing about the rebirth, without knowing about the time travel, without knowing any of the impossible parts, he understood the core truth. I had taken my life back, I had made it mine, and I was never letting anyone take it again. Daniel proposed 2 years later, not with a diamond, with a simple silver band he'd found at an antique shop in Scotland when he was there for a conference. "I know you have the pendant," he said, on one knee in his shitty apartment with the shitty curtains. "I know you already have your diamond, your reminder, your symbol, so I wanted to give you something different, something that's just ours, something new." The ring was perfect, delicate, understated. Nothing like what Marcus had given me. Everything like what I wanted. "Yes," I said. "We got married 6 months later. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. On a beach in Oregon, barefoot in the sand, with a marine biologist officiating because, of course, that's what Daniel wanted." I wore the pendant and my new ring, old and new, past and future, and I was happy. Not the complicated revenge-fueled satisfaction I'd felt watching Marcus and Jessica fall. Not the triumph of building my company or destroying my enemies. Just happy, simple, uncomplicated. The kind of happiness I didn't know existed in my first life. The kind of happiness I'd earned in my second. 20 years after the rebirth, I was in my office when my assistant buzzed me. "There's a situation," she said carefully. "Someone's here to see you. Says it's important. Says his name is Marcus Harper." I felt my heart skip, just once, then settle back into its normal rhythm. Tell him I'm in meetings all day. I did. He said he'll wait. Tell him I'm in meetings all week. Catherine. My assistant's voice was gentle. She'd been with me for 8 years and knew more about my past than most. He looks bad. Like really bad. And he said to tell you, I'm dying and I need to say goodbye. I closed my eyes, took a breath. Give me 10 minutes, then send him up. I used those 10 minutes to center myself, to remember who I was, what I'd survived, what I'd built. And then Marcus Harper walked into my office for the first time in 2 decades. He looked like a ghost, thin, gray, the kind of thin that speaks of serious illness. He'd aged 40 years in 20. His hands shook, his eyes were hollow. Catherine, he said, and his voice cracked on my name. Mr. Harper. Cool, professional. The voice I used with business rivals. My assistant said you were dying. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4, they're saying 3 months. Maybe 6 if I'm lucky. I'm sorry to hear that. And I was. Not sorry enough to forget what he'd done, but sorry in the way you're sorry for any human suffering. I'm not here to ask for anything, he said, lowering himself carefully into a chair. I'm not here to beg or plead or try to make amends. I'm here because I needed to see you. One last time. To see what I destroyed my life trying to steal. I said nothing. You were right, he continued, about all of it. I was a parasite. I saw you as a mark. And I destroyed my entire life because of it. You destroyed your life because you tried to commit murder. Let's be clear about that. I never... He stopped, took a breath. You know, don't you? You know what we planned. I know enough. How? That's the thing I could never figure out. How did you know? I smiled, cold, sharp. The smile I'd perfected in boardrooms and negotiations. Does it matter? I suppose not. He laughed, bitter and broken. I spent 20 years trying to figure it out. 20 years thinking about you, about what I'd done. About who I could have been if I'd just been a better person. You could have been a lot of things, Marcus. But you chose to be what you were. I did. He met my eyes, and for the first time since he'd walked in, I saw genuine remorse. Not self-pity, not regret for getting caught. Actual remorse. And I'm paying for it, every single day. Good. The word hung between us. Harsh. Unforgiving. I saw Jessica, he said after a moment. A few years ago, she told me her theory. About you, about impossible things. And I think she's right. I think you're something special. Something I was too stupid and too greedy to recognize. Something that gave you an advantage I never stood a chance against. I leaned back in my chair. You want to know if I'm a time traveler? If I came back from the dead? If I have some magical power that let me see your betrayal before it happened? I want to know if I'm crazy. If spending 20 years obsessing over how you beat me has made me lose my mind. You're not crazy, I said softly. But I'm not giving you answers either. You don't deserve them. You don't deserve closure. You don't deserve to understand how I won. You just deserve to live with the knowledge that you lost. He nodded, like he'd expected that. Like he'd hoped for something else but knew better. Can I ask one thing? You can ask. Are you happy? Did you build the life we tried to take from you? I thought about lying, about telling him I was miserable. That his betrayal had ruined me in ways he couldn't see. But I looked at my hand, at the simple silver band Daniel had given me, at the pendant around my neck, at the office I'd earned, at the life I'd built. Yes, I said, I'm happy. Probably happier than I would have been if you'd never tried to betray me. Because I learned who I really was, what I was capable of, and I built something better than anything I'd imagined in my first. I stopped. In my previous plans for my life. He smiled, sad and genuine. Good, that's good. He stood, shaky and slow. Thank you for seeing me. Marcus? He turned at the door. I hope you find peace. Real peace in whatever time you have left. Not because you deserve it, but because holding on to hate is exhausting, and I'm tired of carrying you with me. His eyes filled with tears. I don't deserve your forgiveness. You don't have it, but you have my release. I'm letting you go. For me, not for you. He nodded and walked out, and I watched him go, feeling something in my chest loosen. Some weight I hadn't realized I was still carrying. That night, I told Daniel about the visit. How do you feel? He asked. Lighter, I said. Like I finally closed a chapter I didn't realize was still open. Are you going to go to his funeral when it happens? No, but I might send flowers. Something understated. A final goodbye. Very diplomatic of you, CEO lady. I laughed and curled into his side. I learned from the best. You're very diplomatic with coral reefs. Coral reefs are easier than people. They don't lie about wanting to murder you for your trust fund. True enough. We sat in comfortable silence, and I felt the pendant against my chest. My reminder, my trophy, my past. But it was just one piece of me now, not the defining piece, not the most important piece, just a part of my story. The chapter where I died and came back and learned to be strong. But there were other chapters now. Better ones. Happier ones. And I was still writing them. Marcus died 3 months later. I sent white roses to the funeral. No card, no message, just flowers. Jessica called me the day after. I didn't answer, but she left a voicemail. He talked about you at the end, said you were the one who got away, the one who taught him what it meant to have consequences, said if he could go back and do it all again, he'd spend that time trying to be worthy of you instead of trying to steal from you. I thought you should know. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, he knew he'd lost something irreplaceable. We both did. Goodbye, Catherine. I listened to the message once, then deleted it. And then I went home to my husband, to my life, to my happiness. The past was dead and buried. The future was mine. And the pendant around my neck, it wasn't a reminder of what I'd survived anymore. It was a reminder of what I'd become. Strong, independent, unbreakable. The woman who died once and came back to win. The woman who turned a fake engagement ring into a weapon and destroyed her enemies with $49 and absolute determination. The woman who learned that the best revenge isn't destruction, it's success, it's happiness. It's building a life so beautiful that everyone who tried to steal it has to watch from the outside, knowing they threw away their chance to be part of something real. That was my revenge. That was my victory. And it was sweeter than anything I could have imagined in that moment when I woke up 6 months before my death. Marcus's text glowing on my phone, and realized I'd been given the rarest gift of all, a second chance. I made it count. And every day, wearing my pendant, living my life, loving my husband, building my empire, every single day was proof that I'd won. Not because I destroyed them, but because I saved myself. And that was worth more than any diamond, real or fake.